Okay, we'll jump into the workshop now. We've got Michael online, Lewis online, Adam should be joining online. So good to go.
All right, well, good evening, Mayor and Trustees. Garrett Scott, Town Planner. Tonight's workshop is a review and discussion of our comprehensive plan called Fraser Forward. So we have here in the boardroom with us Nora Bland from Cushing Terrell, the consultant that helped town staff with this plan. So I am going to pass it over to her and we'll go through initial presentation.
Hi, Nora. Nice to see you in person.
Yeah, it's good to be here. Thanks for having me. So yeah, it's been a real pleasure over the past 2 years. I was just talking to Garrett about how we interviewed for the project in February of 2024. And so these processes take a long time. There's so much community input and analyses and back and forth on recommendations that go into them. So kudos to you all for supporting town staff through this project. And we've had a really great time talking to the community about dreams and hopes for the future. And so I'll dive in here. Our agenda tonight, we'll talk about the purpose of a comprehensive plan, what we've done through engagement so far, the community values that we landed on through that engagement, and then how the plan is organized, some of the elements, and then talk about those elements, visions, goal topics, and then some examples for strategies and actions, and then the approach to how this plan is going to be implemented ultimately, and then future land use, and then we'll do questions and discussions and talk about what the next steps to adoption are. So really the purpose of a comprehensive plan, it's a long-range policy guide. It manages growth, development, and public investment, and it builds on all of your prior planning efforts, but responds to changing conditions. So community priorities and new opportunities and challenges. Those are all things that we've addressed in this draft, and then it really informs decision making for you all, planning commission, and then other commissions and town staff and community partners and developers. So there were several really key inputs to this planning process, including an existing conditions analysis that really looked at demographics, existing land use, population and projections, and an economic market study. We looked at best practices in Colorado, existing plans and studies that you all have that are adopted, and then community input. And I'll go a little bit more into detail on that in a second. The guidance that we produced from those inputs is vision statements, goals, and strategies, and then the tools that you all and staff can use to implement the plan are the future land use plan, which includes the map, the categories, and the downtown vision, the implementation matrix, which includes the action steps, and those are really the implementable pieces of the plan. And then those elements will inform future regulatory updates. The outreach process, again, we kind of kicked things off with the community in June of 2024, launching a website and doing a community survey. And then we did the picnic at the park to really help people understand the importance of filling out the survey. I think your mayor secret shoppered me at that event. And then we did updates to you on Planning Commission. Next phase was really about gathering data and helping us really get a pulse on Fraser. So we did stakeholder interviews. We talked to the DDA board, Planning Commission, and you all. And then we had our first open house in March of 2025. The next phase was really coming up with the recommendations that are the meat of the plan. So we talked to you all, the DDA board. There was a board retreat that Garrett helped us facilitate. Again with the DDA board, and then pop-up events to advertise our next open house, which happened in July of last year, and then a community survey really just to mirror the open house and give folks the opportunity that couldn't make it to the open house, and an online way to give us feedback. And then we talked to the DDA board again in October, and then just had our ratification hearing with Planning Commission. And now here we are in February with you all. So the values that really rose to the surface through all of the community engagement that we did were affordable and diverse housing options, economic resiliency and workforce development, Fraser's unique spirit and character, safe roads and access for all, public services and community resources, and then natural spaces and wild places. So the plan is organized around the seasons of life and or the seasons of the year, and this is really to reflect that Fraser is a year-round community that is impacted by seasonal changes. So spring is about growth and new beginnings, so that includes the downtown vision, housing, and economic vitality. Summer is about vibrancy and connections, so community, parks, recreation, open space, and trails. Fall is about stewardship and resilience and reflection. So that's land use and sustainability. And then winter is about foundations and support and preparing for the year ahead. So that one is town services and infrastructure, transportation and mobility, and then intergovernmental coordination. So there is a hierarchy for the recommendations included in the plan. So starting at the top, the vision is a really broad prophetic statement that envisions the future as if all the goals have been achieved within the plan. Goals are broad statements that push forward achieving the vision, and they really encapsulate those values that we heard through community engagement. The strategies are, again, derived from the goals, and they represent a set of guidelines to really inform you all and Planning Commission and staff for decision making. And then actions are those actual actionable steps to be taken by departments, partner organizations, or the general community to implement the goals and the policies. So our first plan element here is the downtown vision. The vision statement is to create a vibrant and inviting downtown that embodies the individuality of Fraser through thriving businesses, lively community spaces, walkable destinations, and local character. The topics that we address in the goals are a comfortable environment for walking, biking, and rolling, lively and sustainable business environment, Fraser River and Trail as the heart of town and shaping the town's identity. And then the go-to destination where there's always something fun for everyone. Some examples of strategies and actions: adding sidewalks to all existing and proposed roadways in downtown, establishing the Fraser Mobility Hub, continually assess and evaluate the effectiveness of the zoning incentives to create affordable housing, encouraging active uses and programming on the Fraser River while respecting ecologically sensitive areas and the river itself, and then supporting and enhancing the town's signature seasonal events. But ultimately, the goal of this chapter is to implement the downtown vision plan, which is on this next slide. So there are a lot more diagrams in the plan itself to kind of show what's existing and what's proposed. But really the idea here is to make Clayton Court such a destination and such a walkable and lovable Colorado mountain downtown. And hopefully we've outlined a pretty clear path forward for how to achieve that. Housing chapter, the vision is to encourage the building and maintenance of great places to call home, whether year-round or seasonally. The topics addressed are promoting a variety of housing options, both rental and for sale, encouraging mixed-use housing in walkable neighborhoods, building and strengthening partnerships to increase affordable housing, and then balancing housing options for year-round residents, the seasonal workforce, and non-resident owners and visitors. Example strategies and actions are create incentives to streamline processes to develop missing middle housing options, collaborating with the Fraser River Valley Housing Partnership for a deed restriction program for existing residential units, considering inclusionary zoning models that would require lower middle income units to be constructed with all new development, and then implementing policies that encourage non-resident homeowners to make their properties available for more long-term rental when not in use. For economic vitality, the vision is a vibrant mountain town filled with shopping, dining, and entertainment options fueled by happy visitors and residents. In this chapter, we address building a thriving and memorable mountain downtown, bolstering counter-seasonal business to help with workforce, encouraging growth in small businesses, making Fraser a place where people can both live and work affordably, and encouraging businesses to collaborate in emerging shopping areas. And some examples of strategies and actions are to work with the DDA and the chamber to identify market gaps and actively recruit businesses to fill those gaps, creating a downtown marketing and branding strategy that really highlights this town's unique character and offerings, exploring the creation of a year-round employment incentive program for businesses that maintain staff during the shoulder seasons, and then maintaining an inventory of available commercial spaces and marketing them to business types that are desired by the town. Community vision is a funky and authentic town that celebrates its local history, outdoor recreation, welcoming community, and mountain town character. In this chapter, we address preserving Fraser's charm and sense of community, ensuring development enhances visual character, blending what's modern with the natural beauty and what's already here, and then celebrating arts and culture. Some example strategies and actions are providing incentives for the preservation or adaptive reuse of structures that are beloved by the community or are actually historic, establishing a citizens academy and educating and informing residents on the role that local government plays and how they can be a part of community leadership. Establishing some architectural design guidelines for new development, incorporating elements of the town's history and traditions into public spaces, and then maintain or potentially increase funding for art and public spaces in the town's budget. Parks, recreation, open space, and trails. The vision is that Fraser's parks, recreation, open space, and trails enrich the community by providing fun places to explore, stay active, and enjoy a healthy environment. The topics we talk about in this chapter are protecting and enhancing open spaces, maintaining and enhancing a connected open space and trails network, and then providing more opportunities for indoor recreation and inclusive access to all public spaces. Example strategies and actions: protect the Cousin Ranch open space, upgrade trailheads with amenities, installing consistent, clear signage across trails based on the signage and wayfinding plan, and then work with the Metro Recreation District and explore opportunities for, again, that indoor recreation, potentially like a field house or a multi-purpose use facility, and then maintaining funding sources to support the growth of and improvements to parks. Land use vision is that Fraser grows thoughtfully and sustainably, ensuring a vibrant community that meets the needs of both current and future residents while preserving Fraser's unique character. Goal topics are promoting a balanced mix of land uses that supports the town's ability to provide services and also protect the cherished natural resources here. Plan development where infrastructure and services already exist. Ensure that new development is beneficial to the bottom line, the fiscal sustainability of the town, and then aligning development codes with the vision and goals of this plan. Example strategies and actions are to support small-scale neighborhood serving retail and services within existing residential areas, prioritize the use of underutilized or empty parcels, implement regularly implement and regularly update development fees to ensure that it contributes its fair share to infrastructure, green space, public services. We'll talk a little bit more about that once we get to proposed annexation policy. And then propose the inclusion of light industrial or manufacturing uses to increase the job base in town. And then really use the future land use map as a guide for rezoning and annexation requests. Sustainability and natural resources, we touch on, the vision is that Fraser treasures its natural resources and is dedicated to preserving and improving them, ensuring they're accessible for future generations to come. We talk about supporting initiatives that preserve the natural beauty of Fraser, embracing sustainable development practices, promoting efforts to improve air quality, and inspiring healthy and sustainable lifestyles. And then some actions and strategies that are examples here are conducting comprehensive mapping of existing wetlands to identify where priority areas are to inform future decisions, adopting supplemental regulations to encourage and incentivize new development, to incorporate green stormwater infrastructure, updating the landscaping regulations to require vegetation that doesn't require sprinkling, converting transit and town fleet vehicles to electric or hybrid, encouraging multimodal transportation by designing and building roads for all users, and then measuring and tracking targets for greenhouse gas emissions. Town services and infrastructure. The vision is that Fraser's services and infrastructure provide residents with safe, reliable, and effective amenities. Goals touch on providing essential services to residents of all ages and abilities, expanding the healthcare services in town, and then enhancing the physical infrastructure to support planned growth. Example strategies and actions are to support the formation of a 6 to 12 grade school facility in town, working with local partners to address the need for early childhood education funding, supporting the new Middle Park Health Fraser campus, and recruit other healthcare providers to serve the healthcare needs here. Collaborating with the county and nonprofit mental health providers to increase access, and then making sure there's long-term water supply and quality drinking water, and then regularly updating the capital improvement plan based on infrastructure condition, development trends, and really what you're forecasting in the future. Transportation and mobility. The vision is a joyful and connected mountain town where walking, biking, and transit make it easy to get around and explore. And so we touch on building safe walking and biking connections for year-round use, planning for a transit experience that includes those first and last mile connections, microtransit, and enhanced rail station area, supporting well-connected road network that really makes efficient movement easier, and then providing easy to find parking, and then example strategies and actions, address drainage and snow removal issues, develop new typical roadway sections that allocate space for non-motorized users, supporting increased passenger rail traffic to Fraser, continuing to coordinate with CDOT on the US 40 capacity project, and then evaluating fee in lieu parking policy and shared parking model for new developments, mostly thinking about the downtown area. And then intergovernmental coordination, Fraser communicates and coordinates with other jurisdictions, agencies, and nonprofits to collaboratively address regional planning issues. So in this chapter, we talk about developing a framework for ongoing regional collaboration, encouraging coordination around land use, coordinate regional transit projects, create forward thinking and regional housing plans, work with the county and Winter Park to plan for services and infrastructure, parks and recreation planning, and then protecting residents and visitors from potential disasters. And then examples, strategies, and actions are to explore the formation of a regional transportation authority, to provide sustainable funding for the operation and expansion of transit services, and then working with the housing partnership, Winter Park, and the county to create and implement a value-wide strategy for workforce, seasonal, and affordable housing. So the implementation matrix is organized in the way that it assigns these different criteria to each action. So the example here is the action is that to consider fee reductions or waivers for adaptive reuse projects that are mixed use. Adaptive reuse is just using an older building and repurposing it. And they are assigned a priority level so that 1 is critical, 2 is vital, and 3 is desirable. In this case, it was a priority 2. The time frame is ongoing, which is really as needed or things that are ongoing. Short term is 0 to 3, medium is 3 to 5, and long term is over 5 years. This one was a short-term time frame, and then potential partners are identified, understanding that you have a small staff and everyone in this town has multiple hats and jobs, and so it's going to need to be a partnership to get this plan implemented, and so that's where we identify potential partnerships to move things forward.
Yeah, so I think I maybe just want to pause to see if there's any questions. I know Nora went through a lot of information, but I think the message that I would just reiterate and emphasize is that this plan covers a lot of things, right? It is a comprehensive plan. There's a lot of different topics that this plan seeks to address through the various plan elements. It doesn't necessarily provide an answer to or a clear solution to these opportunities or challenges, but it's meant to try to identify again from this representative sample of strategies and actions that Nora went through. Try to create as comprehensive of a list of strategies and actions that town staff can undertake, and then try to order them in terms of priority for staff and our board, planning commission to actually take action on and implement in the years to come. It's viewed that this document will be looked at least annually, if not more frequently, updated over time, and hopefully, we start ticking some of these things off and think of new strategies and actions as new challenges and opportunities arise. So,
I have just a question on the look. So on page 15 and 16, the backdrop is that lighter yellow. And I don't know if it's my eyes getting old, but I have a hard time reading the white on the yellow. Does anybody else, or is it just my eyes? Did you notice? Can you go back to page 15 or 16?
in,
The fall color.
Yeah,
oh, okay.
that color. So, anybody else have trouble with that? And if nobody has trouble
I
with
did.
it, well, you do? So can you just make that a darker orange?
Yeah, and I will say
With
that
more contrast.
yes, and the actual PDF document, which for some reason these slides are not projecting the same way as that, but it is we've run it through several PDF checks for digital accessibility, so it
Great.
does meet the
That's-
state's requirement for
Perfect.
that. Yeah,
Okay, good,
yeah.
thank you. Yeah, the content's great.
Yeah, that is a good comment. We'll look at the plan document itself here momentarily
Thank you.
to verify that the color is
Yeah,
more
that's-
readable, but okay.
Okay, I'm gonna jump into future land use. So I think I've shown y'all this slide before, but just for to make sure we're all on the same page, what future land use is and is not. It's a tool to illustrate the community's vision for growth. It's a guidance for decision making. It's informed by the public history and landowners, and it is amendable. What it's not is regulatory. It's just a guiding document. It's not zoning, but it can help inform updates to the zoning code. It's not a development plan, and it's also not new. So the 2010 comprehensive plan did have a future land use map. I know you all have seen various versions of this map, but this is where we are today. And the categories really haven't changed much besides including a planned development overlay. Is this where you want to jump in?
I can speak to it more a bit later, but the inclusion of this overlay was meant to address comments and feedback that were received throughout this process, and to try to help communicate that, areas that are zoned planned development in Fraser do have a high degree of flexibility associated with their land use. But again, I can speak to that more a bit later, just because after our review with the Planning Commission last week, staff is proposing some changes, which we'll dive into a bit later.
And then another critical piece is some more guidance for annexation. So this is kind of the top priority list of what the community really needs. And then I'll walk through more of like what's desired. So the conveyance of water rights, dedication of land for 6 to 12 public school, what wastewater treatment plant expansion, a post office, either expanding its current location or relocation, and then a public works satellite facility, inclusion of affordable housing, extension of the river trail, or permanent preservation of open space. So those are really like the critical needs. And then more of the interests are dedication of land for a post-secondary education facility, additional recreation facilities, or then any kind of future public purpose. Inclusion of industrial or manufacturing uses for job creation, and then the creation of a geothermal utility district. That one's for you, Paul, I think. Okay, and then next steps is that in 2 weeks, coming for final approval, and then you get to start on implementation, which is really exciting. Did I miss something?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you jumping in now?
Yes.
Okay.
So any questions for Nora while she's up here?
And do you have,
Yeah.
are other members that are online? Oh, it's Julie.
It was empty.
No, I like it. And I like the matrix. It seems like that's the working end of it.
That's
And
the
it puts
to-do
everything
list.
together and for reference in the long run,
Mhm.
relatively easy reference.
All right. So next, I just wanted to spend a few minutes going through the plan document itself. Um, this was informally shared with the board back in November after it went to the Planning Commission for an initial review. But I just wanted to highlight what changed from that version in November to the current version. Starting with this right here, it is a letter from the mayor. It kind of serves as an introduction to the plan itself, talks about some of the strengths that Fraser already has, some recent achievements that the town has experienced and other community organizations. And then it kind of just introduces the plan document itself. So, some of the feedback that we received back in November with the Planning Commission is that there wasn't really enough of a kind of sales pitch for the town in this comprehensive plan document. So staff really thinks this kind of helps sell Fraser, what we're about, and then it dives into here's where we're going. going through a couple other significant changes. On our existing land use map, we had just a couple incorrectly identified parcels. Undeveloped properties and rendezvous adjacent to Highway 40 were actually shown as parks or open space. They're now correctly shown as unbuilt/undeveloped. And additionally, previously there were some kind of residual streets from the previous Victoria Village subdivision that have now been removed, given that they don't exist in that layout with the current St. Louis Landing development plan. Moving on. We made some changes to the graphics that were shown here just because they were kind of confusing or maybe even misleading. So the intention behind this graphic in this section is simply to show over time the number of housing units in Fraser has increased, but the percentage that are occupied year-round has decreased. And then this shows, as of the most recent, decennial census, that breakdown of housing units by occupancy status, whether they're owner or renter occupied or vacant. We also added this figure here that it's kind of an interesting comparison as part of the existing conditions study and economic analysis that was completed with this plan that compares the monthly visits to the ski resort to Safeway over time. Other changes. So this is our downtown vision plan sheets. These kind of focus area plans, if you will. We just added some additional labeling here to help clarify what's being shown on these figures. And then on the vision plan itself, we added some additional labels and call outs for the town's recently acquired property that's envisioned as the future mobility hub site. And then we just tweaked a few building footprints. I won't dive into every single change or addition that was made in the strategies and actions, but a lot of them were just based on feedback from the Planning Commission or board members that reached out to staff in November and in December. Scrolling ahead to our implementation matrix, one big change from the November version of the plan is this other applicable policy column. Previously, that was blank. Town staff worked to identify, complementary or synergistic policies throughout this implementation matrix, just to try and make this a bit more usable and workable so that, interrelated policies and actions can be more easily identified. Going into the future land use section, we added some information both about our planned development zoned areas, as well as some kind of general policy guidance with regards to future annexation, and also providing that list of community needs versus community interests that the town should consider with any potential future annexation. And just jumping ahead, another change that was made from November was the addition of more survey results, feedback, engagement that we received through our open houses and other online surveys. All that feedback that we collected is now included in the appendix. Previously, we just had the initial survey that was done in the summer of 2024 in the plan, but now we have all the engagement documented. So next, wanted to speak to the future land use map. One of the conditions from the Planning Commission's, recommendation of approval was to modify how the planned development areas are mapped. So right now, as was mentioned earlier, we've been showing this crosshatched plan development overlay, and underneath there's still a color for anticipated future land use in these areas. What that anticipated future land use is based on is the plan development district plans for Rendezvous and Grand Park. So those are the, kind of zoning framework documents that govern land use in these areas. And areas that don't have this hatched overlay are ones that have already received a final PD plan approval by the Board of Trustees, whether or not development in that area has actually occurred. So in the case of Rendezvous, much of it is built out. There's the hotel property under construction, but future land use is shown as commercial. And then the vacant to be developed properties were shown as mixed use to reflect those entitlements per the PDD plan with the plan development overlay. Similarly, in Grand Park, any areas that have been built or have final PD plan approval were shown with a future land use designation, whereas areas without FPDP approval, which includes a few small pockets as shown here, as well as the entirety of West Mountain, were shown with the PD overlay. Based on feedback we have received, staff is proposing for the board's consideration something more like what's shown here, where the PD overlay would simply be a gray color with a hatch through it. It would cover the same areas that don't have final PD plan approval. And then town staff would also update this text to, kind of explain that designation and reference the plan development district plans and simply state that land use in those areas are governed by those documents, and future land use is determined based on, amendments and review and approval by the town to those plans. So I think it strikes a balance from, the feedback that we've received and, and noting the flexibility inherent with our PD zones while still referencing, those underlying zoning documents that govern them. So
Right.
Open it up to any questions or discussion on that point from the board.
I guess I'm not sure why we wouldn't just leave it the way it was in the document. Seems like that's what the annexation agreement provided for, and that's everybody's understanding, and I don't think it's gonna change significantly. So I'm not sure why we would be.
At the planning commission meeting, Mr. Lipscomb was, he felt that they were too definitive, too many things have changed since then that he's entitled to. And that if maybe future investors were to look at it, they would think that that was what was planned there. So, that's why at the planning commission, we offered to this compromise, and he said, fine. Okay, I don't have a problem with that. And so long as we reference those original documents, because
So in
nothing's locked in there.
2028, it goes back to basically what the town code is. So that's, I guess, if that's what he wants.
Yeah, I mean, it's a working document, so we can always
Yeah.
adjust it. I mean, I have to agree with Peggy a bit. I mean, a big gray space would make me as an potential investor say, what's
I
going
know,
on?
the color's not that great.
But
Maybe a light purple?
yeah,
We
But-
can definitely use a different color than gray.
yeah. I mean, there's that, but then there's also just this big landmass that has no description. It's like a secret, like,
Mhm.
what's going on? I don't know.
So
Maybe Grand Park wants to color that shape like the way you guys want it to be colored, so it's not the town doing it. Go for it.
Oh, I mean, like, still this
Please go
map
up to
here.
the podium.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Lisa Steckler for the record. I think the biggest thing is like this map that's under there doesn't reflect some of the changes that are going through planning commission and stuff today that we're about to record plats for. So it's not an accurate representation of even the stuff that we have put forward in the recent submittals that we have. So there's no reason that it can't be a PD zone. I don't think that we wouldn't be amendable to have the entitlements listed in a box in the gray area. Overall, the entitlements are a list of entitlements of what we can build there. That's a compromise. But having some underlay of things that can change per our annexation agreement, because boundaries can move, roadways can change. I mean, the whole road structure that's under there right now is not the accurate road structure of the master water plan even, because you don't have that loop road. We have these other fingers. So it's just confusing for anybody to look at this and be like, that's accurate. But there is a true list of entitlements of what are allowed on the land that could be noted in a box, a definitive box that's just over the gray area of what's entitled there. This also still has the issue of the one that you corrected of the meadow having it not noted as 23W, which is facilities. And I think on your key below there on the colors, you're still calling it open space only.
Yes, we are. The green is park/open space, and we have the
Right, which needs to also note facilities or zone
Or
facilities
conservation
or
easement, preferably.
or
Yeah.
all of those things. Well, that's not defined. It's currently not defined.
right.
Okay.
One other thing I would add is, yeah, I think some of the concerns raised by the developer relate to, their pending land use applications that are under review in the West Mountain area, and recognizing that they are, the geographic areas of development are different than the PD planning area bubbles, as they can be. Those are flexible bubbles, as we all know. And I think a concern that this future land use map would be used to evaluate their development proposals. Again, that wasn't the intention of town staff to use, this future land use map to say, well, your development proposal doesn't match this. To Mayor Cirkvenik's point, the idea behind showing this was more to show the underlying zoning framework for this area and recognize with the PD overlay hatch that it's flexible and it can change and these boundaries are not, set in stone. But again, in staff's opinion, showing something like this where there's no land use designation, residential, mixed use, commercial, et cetera, in the PD areas that don't have, final approval, staff believes that's also acceptable, and we will just make reference to those PD district plans that govern those areas. So.
Okay. More cheerful color then.
Yeah, it could be a gray area for real.
Right. Okay. Did you have more?
That was basically it, I guess, because the conservation easement was brought up. I mean, staff would prefer that the open spaces within Elk Creek and Cousins Meadow remain as parks open space designation. I would simply offer to the board the option to show the conservation easement hatch that we have over the Fraser River in this area. Staff believes, given the court's ruling, that could be an option, but at this time, I think open space would be staff's recommendation.
And there'll always be an electronic version of this that we can update?
Yes, so
And what does that take? An act of Congress or?
no, certainly not. So after this plan is adopted, as Nora mentioned, it can be amended. And it's very typical for future land use maps, especially, to be amended and amended quite frequently. Typically, what's very common is that, say, concurrent with a rezoning or other development, approval, the town also amends its future land use map to reflect that new zoning or new development approval, right? So I think moving forward, that's something that town staff would seek to do, just for example, as developments within the PD areas that have this overlay are approved. Concurrently, town staff would update this future land use map to reflect those approvals.
I guess my concern is, I read in there about wildlife corridors.
Yeah.
And this plan, when it was adopted, had wildlife corridors planned with the golf course. And when you just make it a gray blotch, the wildlife corridors go away, the bubbles move around, everything just is brought up in the air. And I really think that having a pictorial reference of what the annexation agreement called for is, to me, something that we should have in the documentation for future planning 15 years down the road, so that we're not just forgetting about the wildlife, forgetting about 23W, just all that went away, because in 2028, a lot of it is going to go away. So having this documentation here, I think, helps the developer preserve some of the planning that was originally thought of, and I think it helps the community understand what was originally designed when the annexation was done. And I do not like the gray.
So maybe a clarification on it, that that's what the map is based on?
I mean, I
Got
don't
it.
think that having
That's what they're-
all the planning areas and all the densities and stuff as a note, I think it just, this is perfectly adequate here. You don't have to get into all that detail.
Sure.
Thanks. Brandon Young for the record. So the 2010 comprehensive plan reflected exactly gray hash marked areas in the map, remember? Is that true?
The 2010 plan was a revisit of the 2000 plan, and the only change that was made was to allow for a dog park, as I recall, because that was Fran Cook's favorite subject.
Hmm.
So I don't really think the 2010 plan has any bearing on what. we're
Well,
doing
in
now.
the one before though, it also depicts the PD areas not as zoned mapped areas. I mean, this is exactly what Fraser's been doing since the '03 annexation agreement. Why would we make a change now?
Well,
guess is
because
the
I
question.
think the technology's changed a lot since then, so this
That's
probably,
valid.
and lets us have something that's in the record as
Well, I
opposed to.
see
hand
why you
picked.
would want that, but again, we've. Right, and exactly. That's what it looks like currently. Why would we change that? And it's been sufficient for people to understand the entitlements, understand what's coming down the pike. The '03-05 agreements are readily available, public
Well,
documents.
I don't know. I just think that we're currently in a lawsuit that,
Which is
and-
even more reason to be careful about what we depict on these zoning maps, right? When you agree? Well, sure, not a zoning, but it does guide regulatory framework. And this lacks a lot of modeling capacity for wastewater. We're submitting a master water plan. There's zero modeling on EQRs, for example.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of sustenance that was in these past comprehensive plans doesn't exist here. You know, it's an aspirational narrative document. It's beautiful, looks awesome. I mean, stellar looks, but the sustenance when you start digging into infrastructure, land use, public investment, I mean, it frames itself repeatedly as an aspirational document. I think, if it's aspirational, that's why maybe we want to put colors in zoning, but really we needs to be a hatched area, and that's how it's been done
it's
historically.
still hatched. We're not gonna take the hatches out.
No, sure, but underlaying proposed, which we all know change, and that's why we're in a lawsuit, right? Changes.
I mean, I think it's this way, it at least reminds you what the original plan was. I mean, obviously it'll deviate, but I think, we need to have a record of what the original plan was.
Despite not having it ever in any other comprehensive plan since the '03 and '05 annexation agreements.
Like I said, technology's changed.
I don't think it's a technology question, but I appreciate it, guys.
Yeah, go ahead, Pernell.
Hey, yeah, I just wanted to say that, Peggy keeps saying that it's a plan or it's a sketch of what was meant to happen. It's not. It is a drawing and just a drawing, it doesn't represent anything that's factual or anything that was mentioned or planned in the future. So that's the problem with showing it as a open space and as part of the, I don't know, the meta. The way she thinks the meadow exists because it's drawn on a piece of paper is not anything to do with an actual drawing. And where this puts the town in trouble, from my understanding, is you guys are implying a takings of land that you don't have the right to take or claim as open space at this time. So I'd be to the area of saying you shouldn't have it on there as open space. You shouldn't have it as colored as open space. It is a development that's in process and nothing has been defined, nor has it ever been defined. So that's where I think you guys need to reconsider how you're presenting this to the public, because the public's going to think ownership of that property is open space because they saw it in some document, and it's not open space. It hasn't been planned out. Nobody knows what it's going to be in the future. We don't know what has to be used for the development yet, so you guys can't keep calling it open space.
23W is open space.
23W is open space, but that open space has
Some
not been
facilities.
defined yet. Where that open space is, how much open space there is, where it exists has not been defined in any way on any map.
I remember seeing one for the PDDP that was
You remember
attached
seeing
to the
a
annexation
drawing,
agreement, so I
a
beg
sketch
your
plan, Peggy, a sketch plan
It was
or
not
a
a sketch
drawing
plan.
is
It,
not,
it
hold
had
on,
planning areas identified.
it doesn't matter. It's not a map. It's not a zoned piece of property. The area bubbles, the development bubbles, and the sketch of 23W are non-existent. We don't know what they are yet. They don't exist because we don't know their size. They haven't been subdivided and they haven't been platted.
Yeah,
We
I
do
mean,
know the size of 23W.
You do not know the size of
It's
23W.
466 acres, Parnell.
The
So-
open space is required. 23W is a amount of open space. Where it is and how much you have is not determined yet. There's a maximum amount of open space that's required, and that map does not show what that open space is or where it goes. Your diagram.
I'm gonna be honest, I don't
Map.
care that much about the Grand Park parcel and what they want shown on
Then-
this comprehensive plan. The
It's
the
fine.
comprehensive
Then just
plan
make it gray.
overall has a 3-mile annexation plan. That's totally like, sure that we'd love to see this, but it's gonna change a million times. Like, I see the same thing about Grand Park, but if they want it to be hatched and gray, that's fine. We'll just change it as we go. Is
Okay.
if that's gonna make them happy.
And it's our comprehensive plan, the town.
True.
Again,
anybody-
I think bottom line staff's recommendation is that doing something as shown here with a singular color with reference to the 2003 and 2005 PDDs for Rendezvous and Grand Park achieves the same thing functionally as showing this, with the one disadvantage of, staff believes that depicting this just graphically communicates the PDD for Grand Park, but it would be the future land use map would be used in the same way if we had it shown as this, and it would just require, say, the public to take one extra step to find those PDD documents to see, well, what are the planning areas and what are the entitlements in these areas that haven't, received final development approval yet.
So are there defined wetlands in the hatched area at this time?
In
And old wetlands and wildlife corridors? I mean, that might be something that it's potentially will not change in importance that it doesn't. That might be worth including.
I don't know to what degree, 23W was laid out in this way in the PDD
Yeah.
to be responsive to wildlife
Okay,
corridors, wetlands,
nothing
and other
fair enough.
things. I don't believe anything in the PDD itself, but I believe they're laid out to maybe address at least those partially.
Well,
would be
there'll
my
be
guess.
time. Be time to work that out.
Yeah.
Cool. Mr. Corcoran,
Go ahead, Adam.
Adam.
Yeah, I was just asking about the West Mountain development that's already been approved is not represented in that gray area, hashed area, or whatever it's going to be. I also think I agree with you, Brian. It really doesn't matter. It's our comp plan, and it's just to get an idea across. But I think if we need some additional information, we could put a text box in there just saying, look to these documents, or here's where to find the vested rights. Like Garrett said, it is just a singular step more, but to provide those instructions, I think would be helpful.
I think just to respond with regards to the area of West Mountain that Adam mentioned, there is West Mountain Filing 1. It has received final plat and FPDP approval. It's not depicted in this future land use map because the developer has modified those plans. They were recommended for approval by the Planning Commission just last week. They're coming to the board in 2 weeks, our meeting on the 18th.
Okay.
So technically, they have a modified plan that is not approved at this time, although it is expected to be approved shortly. And I think that can be our first amendment to this future land use map. After that is approved,
There you go.
that,
That's
yes,
exactly what I was thinking, is that would start up this process. Okay. Thank you.
absolutely. Yeah.
One more minute. Anybody got a closing thought? Well, I appreciate all the work that you guys have done. I appreciate even the emails from you guys. They were well thought out and made me think about a bunch of things. So I appreciate it all. Yeah, and the input from the general public as well. So I think we're moving in the right direction. No decisions are getting made in the workshop, of course, but we got a couple weeks before we want to try and make a decision. So let's get that final input in there and let's get a comp plan approved.
It'd be a wonderful thing, get that adopted on 18th. Okay.
All right.
Right. Thank you, board.
Thanks, everybody. We'll take a break. We'll be
Thank
back
you.
at 6 o'clock.